Donald Trump did this interview with CNBC, I think, to stabilize the market in the wake of his tariffs. CNBC is, of course, financial network television where they just discuss like stock prices and they discuss Palantir 10xing their revenue while liquidating, and I mean actually liquidating 1/3 of their workforce. But the economy right now is a little skeptical of Donald Trump as president because he is such a wild actor. So, CNBC brought him on in an attempt to quell those fears. And it was a fucking disaster. It was a fucking disaster. And yes, it's 40 minutes long. We're going to watch it on 1.25 speed. This is probably going to be like 90 minutes of commentary for me. I'm going to do my best not to interject, but golly, what a wild ride this was.
Yes, that we've been talking about all morning. President Donald Trump. Mr. President, welcome. Thanks for calling in. Wish you could be here in person, but we'll do this.
Good morning, Joe.
We've been talking about the BLS and the employment numbers all morning long. Sometimes I know you get a chance to tune in. I want to bring up a chart. I hope you can see it, or else I'll describe it to you. This is the response rate over the last 10, 12 years for the BLS, the household survey. It's dropped from 90% or so on time down to 60 and sometimes even lower. It's arguably the most important number we get about the economy. Yesterday, we had Wharton Professor Jeremy Siegel on. Just bear with me, Mr. President, and listen to this. I know you're familiar with Wharton, but unsolicited, this is what Jeremy Siegel said yesterday about the numbers.
I'm not going to let the BLS off the hook. I mean, you talk about how to fix it. Make these questionnaires mandatory and give them a time limit to fill it out. I think the response rate's down to 60%. I mean, that's unacceptable for the most important statistic that we have. It's almost like we're sending them out, fill it out when you can. We know you like to go to the beach in the summer, so it might be a little bit late. This is just not acceptable today. We need that response rate has to go up. And when you make the biggest mistake in 50 years, why? Why wasn't there an explanation?
It's 258,000 less in 2 months. That was the biggest revision since 1968, Mr. President. So we're in the internet age. We still can't get any instant data. We're still using snail mail to get the responses back. It is the government, after all. Antiquated, no doubt, and certainly suboptimal, but rigged? Where do you get the notion that it's rigged, or do you have any evidence there?
It is antiquated, but it's also very political. And, I had an election recently where I did very well, won every swing state.
I had an election recently.
Won the popular vote, won everything.
I had an election recently. I'm not sure if you're aware, but every 4 years, a new president is decided here in the United States, and I participated in that back in November. It was this small little thing, but...
All right, won all the counties. It's I think 87% of the counties were Republican up. That's never happened before.
All the counties.
And yet I had to go through hell. And it was just days before the election, they put out numbers that it was like the country was on fire. It was doing so well. And then they did a revision about 2 weeks later, and the revision was down by almost 900,000 jobs. Do you remember that? And I said, I said, what would have happened? What would have happened if I lost? Think of it. I would have said, they gave phony numbers, and then they revised them a week and a half later.
Those were benchmark numbers, though, Mr. President. That happens. They do that. They do that twice a year, and it reconciles the monthly figures with, like, the overall numbers. And it was a big number, and obviously...
But the numbers were rigged. The numbers were rigged. Biden wasn't doing well. He was doing poorly. They announced these phenomenal numbers 2 days before the election, and a little bit before that, always these great numbers, and you knew it wasn't doing well. You knew prices were through the roof, and inflation was terrible. The whole thing was bad. But think of it. Then they did the biggest revision, I think, in history of almost 900,000 jobs. And it turned out to be more than that because later on they did another revision. And so they gave phony numbers in order to win the election. After I won the election...
This is Donald Trump's new thing where he says something, the person fact checks him, and then he just keeps saying it. He literally will just copy and paste what he said previously instead of not saying, no, that's not true, you're wrong, you're a dumbass. This guy... He said his name's Joe. I don't know what his name is. I'm going to be honest. Joe literally said, well, that's what we're going to call him for the rest of the video. Joe said, yeah, those are benchmark numbers. They do that twice a year. It happens all the time. John Trump is like, no, actually, did you know that I had an election and they revised the numbers by 900,000? He really does have dementia.
And I said, too big to rig. But after I won the election, then they announced a downward number, in other words, to bring them back to reality. And I said, wow, supposing I would have lost, I would have blamed that, and people would have said I was a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, but Joe Biden was still the president after the election. So those are still his numbers. And yeah, if they went down, like it doesn't change the fact that Joe Biden was still the president when the numbers went up and then they went back down. Like, what the fuck?
Crazy.
Elaine Chao was on yesterday, and I know she was. I think she was labor secretary for 8 years under Bush too, and she was your transportation secretary as well. And she said, the commissioner doesn't really even get involved with the actual minutia of putting all these things together. And there's no way that it could have been that she could have chosen to rig these numbers to make them look bad. And these are statistical changes based on this antiquated system, and it's just a big leap to go to rigged. And then it also, Mr. President, it makes anyone you pick is going to be, critics are going to say, hey, he's picking a guy that's going to give him or a gal that's giving him the numbers that he wants. So it undermines confidence in the system to some extent. You had, according to many people, all the rights in the world to try to replace a commissioner when hasn't gotten any better. But that is maybe a bridge too far, according to most people.
Well, I think when somebody says the commissioner is not involved, I don't want to get into any arguments with anybody. Why should I? She's a very nice woman.
Exactly.
But when they say that that nobody was involved, that it wasn't political, give me a break. Look, before the election, I had this massive outflow of beauty for Biden. I mean, he didn't know he was alive. And for Biden, the economy was roaring. It was a beautiful thing. And I said, there's no way this is happening. It's going the opposite direction. And 2 weeks later, they said I was right. But even if you look at the original, the ones from the other day, the numbers were very timid. And then they announced something that made them even more timid on top of it. Instead of a reporting day, I don't know why, it just seemed a little bit more important than most times when they announced these numbers.
We talked earlier that the unemployment rate is still low. It's 4.2%.
No, let him talk. Let him talk. He's not making sense. He does not look like someone who should be the fucking president right now. He's still talking about Joe Biden. He had this big beauty for Joe Biden. Who gives a shit? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, Grandpa? So now Joe is gonna come in and be like, Mr. President, let's refocus. Let's refocus the conversation here. It's like, this is not how you handle somebody with dementia. You're supposed to just let them talk, let them get it all out. Unfortunately, this person with dementia is the goddamn president.
Fine. I'm not saying earth-shattering. I will say this. The numbers before the election were earth-shattering. I'm not saying these were earth-shattering. But then they announced a couple of 100,000 to make it look a little bit worse from, months before. I said, where did those numbers come from? So
for as much as you want,
it's a highly political situation. It's totally rigged. Smart people know it. People with common sense know it. And a lot of people like to keep their head under the covers. And
let's move on to this. Which number do you believe at this point? Because
Joe is tweaking,
suddenly the chances of what you've wanted for months and argued for
like
months,
the investors know, Mr. President, the investors don't like this.
Do you not believe the current numbers because they're playing right into what you want the Fed and Jay Powell to do? They're not horrible, as you said, but perhaps with the tariffs, some businesses delayed some spending. Some consumers may have been less certain about the future. So maybe we're seeing a slight slowdown in labor, but you're going to get exactly what you want based on these numbers. Which ones do you believe? Do you not believe the revised numbers either?
It's not what I want. I don't want that. I wanted it a year ago. I wanted it a long time ago. Jay Powell is highly political, and I think, I call him too late. Jerome, too late. Powell, he's too late. He's too late always. He always has been, except when he came to lowering interest rates before the election. He did. He worked that out.
Who would you replace him with? I know you watch the show occasionally, and we had an extended interview with one of the prospective replacements, Kevin Warsh. Were you watching that day? Or
I was. He's very good. He's very good. Sometimes they're all very good until you put them in there, and then they don't do so good.
He has no idea who Kevin is. It's like, I don't even watch this show. Who the fuck are you? Is your name Joe? I don't know who you are. What network am I talking to right now?
But a lot of them, I think he's a very good guy. I think I say Kevin and Kevin. Both Kevins are very good, and there are other people that are very good too. But
Kevin's
a lot
like
of times,
I don't know if that's good.
A lot of times they're very good. Like this character that we have in there now, Jerome Too Late Bell. He was very good. He said, "Sir, I'll keep interest rates so low. I'm a low interest rate person, sir." You could hardly hear him talking over the desk.
Is Warsh
somebody that worked for me was a big fan of his. Not a fan of his. He hardly knew him, but he wanted him so badly. I did somebody a favor. I put him in there. No, he's too late. He's too late. That name will stick to him.
Can you handicap it at all? Who you're, or you won't know? When will you know?
Just quick educational tangent here. The reason why Jerome Powell is not lowering interest rates is directly because of Donald Trump's tariffs. There are multiple reasons for this. There are multiple reasons why lowering interest rates is potentially bad. But in response to the tariffs, lowering interest rates weakens the U.S. dollar and would make imports more expensive. It would therefore jack up the cost of goods even more. That's the primary reason why Jerome Powell is not doing this. It does also make the housing market particularly more competitive, because if you have like a 7% interest rate and you drop it down to 4, I watched, I think Clear Value Tax was the channel that I watched. He explained it like that effectively cuts a potential mortgage payment in half, thereby allowing more people to afford that house. That's not really applicable to this situation. It is all directly tied to the tariffs and the standing of the U.S. dollar.
And
Well, I
when
think
you
the two
announce it,
Kevins are doing well, and I have two other people that are doing well.
It's two
You know,
Kevins.
in the end, there are
I have two
numerous
Kevins.
people
I have two
that are
Jakes. They are all
qualified.
doing very
Everyone
well.
on
I
your
call
phone
them
right
Kevin
now,
and
in terms
Kevin
of
and
at your
Jake and
beautiful
Jake.
Studio would be very qualified, in my opinion. You guys are better than most of the people that do it for a living. But I watched a lot, actually. No, I think that it'll be 1 or 4 people.
Are the
They're
other
not
two
going to make
names?
the decision soon. And don't forget, we have somebody that left early, which was a pleasant surprise. We have a woman that left early. She announced 2 days ago that she's leaving, and I'm going to be announcing that very shortly, too. That will be, most likely it'll be for the 4 months, for the short period of time. But a lot of people say that when you do that, why don't you just pick the person who's going to head up the Fed? That's a possibility, too.
President Trump, you said there are 4 names. There are 2 other names that have been mentioned in the press. One is Governor Waller. The other is the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Are those the 4 that you're considering?
Well, I love Scott, but he wants to stay where he is. I'll take him off because I asked him just last night, is this something you want? Nope, I want to stay where I am. He actually said, I want to work with you. It's such an honor. I said, that's very nice. I appreciate that. But
Scott Bessent is scared of Donald Trump. I don't want to be the head of the Federal Reserve because he would call me Scott Too Late
Doing a
Bessent.
really good job. We made the greatest trade deals in the history of our country. We had to because we were being ripped off by the world. It's not like we had a choice. If we would have gotten these trade deals, if you would have had a normal president that would have just continued to allow every country in the world to rip you off, we would not have a country anymore. Your show would be off the air. There'd be nothing to look at. It would be a disaster. We were in such bad shape when I took over. Eggs had tripled in price. More than that. Everything was up, and prices are down, and it bugged me. I looked at CNN the other night, which is a failing deal. It's got no ratings, and I'm probably the only guy watching. And I watched these guys talking about, well, with Trump, prices are up. No, prices are down since I came in. Down. All prices just about, except for the price of stock. The price of stock is way up, okay? But
The price of stock is way up. Bro. The hedge fund managers are watching this and just crying. They're getting ready to kill themselves because of how bad the implications are going to be on the market. Jamie Dimon is watching this and saying he cannot believe he tied himself so closely to Donald Trump. The price of eggs was up 23%, they said. I said, no, that is wrong. Actually, they are down 23%. Eggs are free, actually. Yes, that's right. We are now a Marxist utopia where the eggs are entirely subsidized and the workers own the means of production. That's right. I am paying the chickens to lay these eggs.
Down. And if you look at energy, I'll give you an example, Joe. Look at energy.
Some of them, but, yeah.
Energy is way down. Energy is down to $2.20 a gallon.
He's squirming.
It's down to a level.
He's
you're
squirming.
Down, around 65.
Dude.
Yeah. Energy is way down.
Bro.
Energy is down to $2.20 a gallon now per car. It's down to a level. You're down, I guess, around 65.
Actually, 280. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's about right. I paid fucking $3.17 for gas the other day on Long Island. Unfortunately, because it was fucking not self-serve, which I fucking despise. But even at a regular gas station, it's still like minimum $3.
A barrel, but it's going down. There's tremendous energy, and if you notice, OPEC and OPEC
natural gas
Plus,
$3, but it's going down.
I think they want me happy because if energy goes down low enough, Putin's going to stop killing people. That'll be nice, even though they're his own people that are dying, him and Ukraine. But Putin will stop killing people if you get energy down another $10 a barrel. He's going to have no choice because his economy stinks.
Mr. President, it's Andrew here. It's great to speak with you.
They had to go to a different guy. Yo, Joe had nothing to say. The woman, I don't know her name. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with Squawk Box. She had nothing to say. They had to go to fucking Andrew to try to rein this in. To try to course correct from Donald Trump saying if we get the price of oil down by $10 a barrel more to -7 cents to -$7 a barrel, Putin will stop killing people.
I just wanted to ask you about, you mentioned tariffs, and on Sunday you talked again about this idea of dividends for middle and lower income folks that might come off of the tariffs, meaning the revenue that's coming in from the tariffs. And I wanted you to maybe explain how that might work in practice and how you're thinking about that and the trade-offs between paying down the debt, which I thought was something you had been talking a lot about, versus sending checks out, because obviously that creates its own debt for us.
So we're taking in trillions of dollars, Andrew. If you look at Japan, we're taking in
How many?
So we're taking in trillions of dollars.
Trillions!
If you look at Japan, we're taking in 500.
Trillions, bro. Trillions. The White House account said 150 billion in 6 months, and he said trillions. Oh, we're so cooked. This is way better. This is way more of a train wreck than I could have imagined. Oh my God. And he hasn't even started saying anything racist yet.
$150 billion. And that's like a signing bonus that a baseball player would get. He would get slightly less no matter how good he is.
Oh.
But they give a signing bonus of $1 million or $2 million or $20 million or
They
whatever the hell they
definitely
give today. So it's so out of control. But a signing bonus. So I got a signing bonus from Japan of $550 billion. That's our money. It's our money to invest as we like. European Union, $650 billion. Think of it. And they're going to buy $750 billion worth of our energy. And they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And by the way, they're going to open up their countries, which they've never done. Japan has never. If you did business in Japan, they would arrest you. You're not allowed to do any business. And now Japan is
If
totally
you
opened
did
up.
business in Japan, they would arrest you. Oh, you opened up a bookstore? I'm going to fucking kill you, actually. That's what they do in Japan. One of the most, like, probably the most hyper-capitalist country on the planet. They kill you. They arrest you for doing business.
Up their country. They're even taking our rice, which is something that nobody said was possible. But more importantly, they're taking our cars. They're taking the very beautiful Ford 150, which does very well, and I'm sure we'll do very well there. And other things that do very well here will also do well there. You'd be surprised that
they're not buying American cars in Japan. Even if like Japan buys them, people are not going to buy them.
South Korea has opened up their country, but not only opened up, and that's going to be huge business. When you open up South Korea, it's a closed country, and now all of a sudden we're allowed to sell cars into South Korea and trucks and SUVs.
This does not play on CNBC because the people that watch CNBC, I think, have at least an elementary understanding of how economics works. And if not, like, that's the bare minimum. I'm sure people watching CNBC know that Japan just stopped buying rice from whatever fucking country to buy from the United States. However, that other country is just going to find additional trading partners. The people that watch CNBC are tapped into this shit. They're not just like, they're not entirely brain dead. They don't just put it on for background noise because they're saying that, you know, brown man's scary. They're not saying that Zoran Mamdani is a fucking Islamic jihadist. This audience does not pick up on Donald Trump's bullshit.
I mean, we're really opening it up. Vietnam is opening up their country. You know, these are all closed countries, but the EU was closed. They wouldn't take our agriculture. I said to...
because it's full of chemicals.
Let me just say, a prime minister, a couple of years ago, I said, how many cars are you taking a year? Let me guess, is it one or two? She said, no, we don't take any of your cars. I said, that's right. That's not nice. I said, that's not right. That's not a nice thing, Angela. But they took none of them, and now they take all our cars, all our trucks. Everything is open, 100%. In addition, the EU is going to pay us $650 billion. We're going to round it off, actually, because of certain things, to $600 billion. And think of it, they're going to put up $750 billion. We're a rich country again. Now, these are just
dude, he's writing fan fiction in real time. Oh, Angela Merkel, how are you going to fit this big, beautiful Ford F-350 on that tiny cobblestone street in Berlin? I don't know how you're going to do it, but I'm going to make you do it. Yes, that's right. We need the Ram 3500 cruising down the tiny streets of Dusseldorf. I think it'll look very nice. I think it is great for Germany.
We make great deals with all of the countries. And and they're being fair
President,
about it. One other thing,
They've given up. The anchors have given up. They're like, this guy is impossible to deal with. He is so old and his brain is so deteriorated that you cannot have a fucking conversation with him. He does not talk to you. Donald Trump no longer talks to you. He talks at you on just predictive text. Whatever thought spawns into that cranium of his, it's coming out.
For your listeners that perhaps are a little bit less wealthy than some of your listeners, I'm doing something that nobody's ever done before. As you know, for 30 years, Europe has had drug prices that are, in many cases, 1/10 the cost of drugs in here. Same manufacturing plant, same everything. I've invoked favored nations. Now, there is no favored nations clause. I've just said there is, okay, because we're not going to pay 10 times more per pill than they pay in Europe. And that's going to have a tremendous impact on the price of medicine.
Yeah, no, they do that because the government negotiates with the drug companies to set those prices, which does not happen in the United States. In fact, Donald Trump tore up an agreement that would have allowed Medicare to do that. Medicare, Medicaid, one of them, I forget which one. That's why the drug prices are low. Drugs are really inexpensive to produce for these companies, but they jack up the prices in the United States because the government fucking allows them to. It has nothing to do with tariffs. Like, that's an entirely different policy discussion.
Mr. President, what kind of teeth, though, are in those investments? What kind of teeth are in those investments, meaning that would force the EU to make those investments? If they don't make those investments, what happens on the other side?
Well, then
we nuke them. That's right. We are going to blow up Germany and France and the UK, except Ireland. Well, Ireland isn't a part of the UK anymore, but we're not going to blow up Ireland because I very much love Ireland. But if they don't follow through on these tariffs, we are going to nuke them.
Tariffs of 35%. No, they brought down their tariffs. So they paid $600 billion, and because of that, I reduced their tariffs from 30% down to 15%. And a couple of countries came, how come EU is paying less than us? And I said, well, because they gave me $600 billion. And that's a gift. That's not like, a loan, by the way. That's not a loan that, 3 years comes up, we have to pay it back. There's nothing to pay back. They gave us $600 billion that we can invest in anything we want.
Bro, he's like, they gave me cash considerations. I traded Jordan Bell for cash considerations.
We have been trying to figure out the details on that, Mr. President, so
well,
we
there are no
appreciate the
details.
clarity on
the
that.
details are $600 billion to invest in anything I want.
Wait a minute. Wait.
And nobody knows it, Becky. Nobody knows it because, they don't know.
No, we have been trying to figure out the details on that, Mr.
There
President.
are no details.
The details are $600 billion to invest in anything I want. Anything.
Okay.
I can do anything I want with it. And the purpose was they've been, ripping us for so many years that it's time that they pay up. And they have to pay up. We couldn't afford to have the deficits. Look, I did something with Switzerland the other day. I spoke to their prime minister. The woman was nice, but she didn't want to listen. And they paid essentially no tariffs. And I said, we have a 41.
These women, they just don't listen. I actually looked at her and said, I cannot believe that they allowed you to hold office. I'm actually trying to make it so that women can't vote. Do you know that if you were in the United States, I would not allow you to vote, let alone be prime minister? Unless, of course, you buy my Ford F-150. Yes, that's right. That's right, Ms. Prime Minister. If you order 1,000 Ram 3500s, I will allow you to vote in the United States of America.
$1 billion deficit with you, madam. I didn't know her. I said, we have a $41 billion deficit, and you want to pay 1% tariffs. You wanted 1%.
Bro,
I said, you're not going to pay 1%.
I don't know what the deficit is, but if I had to guess, it's probably like watches and chocolate. It's not a deficit if you're receiving a good or a service. There's a fundamental disconnect here, which at this rate has to be intentional. Like, I'm not going to use the coffee analogy because, like, the CNBC crowd, they know that. They know that trade deficits exist for a reason.
Because I view deficit as loss. You have some people, by the way, I think
pharmaceuticals are a big issue with Switzerland. I think.
Well, I'll go into pharmaceuticals. Yeah. They make a fortune with pharmaceuticals, and they make our pharmaceuticals in China and Ireland and everything else. And within the next week or so, we're going to be announcing tariffs on specifically. This is a separate class than the 15% tariffs on sort of everything. These are excluded classes, I call them. I like to call them excluded, like steel, aluminum, etc.
Right, the
well,
232.
We're going to be announcing on...
Donald Trump's like, I want all these tariffs except on things that we actually really need, so I'm going to exclude them from these tariffs because I'm a baby and only use this as a talking point to distract from my association with Jeffrey Epstein.
Semiconductors and chips, which is a separate category, because we want them made in the United States. And by the way, they're being made in the United States. You know, we have the
Well, they're
biggest
not.
in the world, as you know, from Taiwan is coming over and spending $300 billion in Arizona, building the biggest plant in the world for chips and semiconductors. But on pharmaceuticals, we'll be putting a initially
They are
small
doing that, and then
tariff on pharmaceuticals.
Donald Trump
But in
tore
1
up
year,
the
1.5 years,
executive order that Joe Biden
it's gonna go
authored to do the exact same thing.
150%, and then it's going to go to 250% because we want pharmaceuticals made in our country. And that's not the CHIPS Act like Biden did because he didn't know what he was doing, where they gave billions of dollars to companies that had more money than they knew what to do with.
President Trump, can I ask you about
But that's how you do that. You need to stimulate business. You need to stimulate business in the United States because these private companies are going to be far stingier with their resources than the government because they have to protect their bottom line. Like, yeah, I would throw infinite money at these big companies to build in the United States because it would, in the long term, be better than being entirely reliant on countries like China and Taiwan and Mexico and Canada. But you can't do that in 6 months. This is an 8, 9, 10-year long project.
something that you're doing that's opposite of the Biden administration too, and that's the latest deal that you've announced. The latest deal though that you're announcing with India, you're upset with the trade deal there, especially because they're buying Russian oil. The Biden administration sanctioned Russian oil, but then they kind of winked and nodded and appreciated that India and China were buying some of that oil because they were worried it would raise oil prices and thereby prices at the pump. To you, is it more important to shut down the Russians on this than to worry about oil prices?
I'm not worried about prices because we're drilling at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And what Biden did is he stopped my drilling. And then prices, if you remember that first couple of months, prices went through the roof. And
just so you guys know, the United States exports more barrels of oil per day than any other country on the planet. But since that oil is owned by private companies, they can do whatever the fuck they want with it. That includes not only exporting it, but selling it back to the consumer at a price that is significantly marked up. If the energy sector was nationalized, you would be receiving oil at wholesale. So whatever it costs per gallon, that is what it would be sold back to you at. Maybe a little bit more if you wanted to do something like what Norway does and create a public fund with all of the profits from that so you can reinvest back into your country. But yeah, nationalize the energy sector.
He said, let's go back to what Trump was doing. Let's go back to it. But by that time, they had blown it, and the energy prices were so high, and that's what caused that, and his crazy spending is what caused, by the way, the largest inflation in the history of our country was during the Biden administration.
That's
not
just
48.
Not true at all. That is so not true. Come on, bro. Come on, man. You're speaking to people who lived through the fucking early 80s when interest rates were 16%. Like, do not, like, what the fuck, man? The Great Depression? That's right, folks. Inflation under Joe Biden was higher than during the Great Depression.
Years, you know, they like to say 48 years. It was the largest in the history of our country, the inflation that we had during Biden, because the man obviously didn't know what he was doing. But with India, what people don't like to say about India, they're the highest tariff nation. They have the highest tariff of anybody. We do very, very little business with India because their tariffs are so high. So India has not been a good trading partner because they do a lot of business with us, but we don't do business with them. So we settled on 25%, but I think I'm going to raise that very substantially over the next 24 hours because they're buying Russian oil, they're fueling the war machine, and if they're going to do that, then I'm not going to be happy.
There are a lot of deals signed, and I don't know, you know, I thought India was imminent. I'm not sure what the sticking point is there, Mr. President. But let's just, since we don't have all day, we got to talk China.
Well, the sticking point with India is that tariffs are too high. Now, I will say this. India went from the highest tariffs ever. They will give us 0 tariffs. And they're going to let us go in. But that's not good enough because of what they're doing with oil. Not good.
It looked like you were going to have a meeting, and people were talking about it with President Xi, and then you went out of your way to kind of say other people are saying, I think you even called it fake news or something. It looked like you were indicating that you were unhappy or that talks had broken down. And we've had a couple of frameworks or some positive moves. And you know, China, you've had a lot of success with other countries. China is a big deal and a big, not quite the elephant in the room, but certainly an important trading partner. Where does that stand? Will there be a meeting?
Certainly an important trading partner. Yeah, they're just responsible for virtually every fucking commodity that we consume in the United States.
Meeting between you and President Xi? Anything Anything planned at this point? What's the sticking point now, and how optimistic are you that we get a comprehensive
Well, I can have
deal?
a meeting. We have a very good relationship, but I didn't call for the meeting. He called for the meeting. So the fake news announced Donald Trump wants a meeting with China. No, I didn't want it. No, he asked for a meeting, and I'll end up having a meeting before the end of the year, most likely, if we make a deal. If we don't make a deal, I'm not going to have a meeting. I mean, what's the purpose of meeting if we're not going to make a deal? But we're getting very close to a deal. We're getting along with China very well. I will tell you, you had a point when I had 145% tariffs on. I put in for fentanyl. I actually said to people, where are we now with China, by the way? Because I kept adding more and more. They said, sir, you're up to 145%. I said, you got to be kidding.
Yo, this is the president. This is the president of the United States that has no fucking idea what he's doing, literally. Where are we at with China? I just woke up today. I woke up with gas. What are we at with China on tariffs? 150, 197. I don't know.
Sort of had to bring it down a little bit. But when it was up to 145%, meaning we were doing zero business with China, China was collapsing. I don't know if you know that. You haven't reported it if you do. But China was collapsing. China is very reliant on the United States.
This is crazy cope. China was actually collapsing. Meanwhile, they're building a new fucking city in the sky. They built a new goddamn train. China's collapsing, but it just built a fucking train that goes like 800 kilometers an hour. China's collapsing is the most untrue statement that could be uttered this century.
With him is very good. I think we'll make a good deal. It's not imperative, but I think we're going to make a good deal. But no, they had a thing that Donald Trump really wanted to go there. No, I don't. It's a 19-hour flight. It's a long flight. But at some point in the not too distant future, well, and just to end this conversation in China, I have a very good relationship with President Xi. Always had, other than the COVID moment where I was very angry with him and essentially didn't want to talk to him, frankly.
President Xi, I'm sorry for putting all these tariffs on you.
From the day one, I was saying I knew exactly where it came from. But that did interfere with the relationship. But no, I've had a great relationship with President Xi. We respect him a lot. They respect us a lot. They didn't respect Biden. They thought he was a numbskull. They couldn't believe he was the president of the United States, and neither can anyone else.
I can't believe this guy's the president of the United States again. Like, this is fucking insane. We have two presidents with dementia back to back. That's insane. That is the craziest back to back moment I think I've ever experienced. And it's the two different kinds of dementia also.
Mr. President, on a different topic, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that you're prepping an order that they say would punish banks that discriminate against conservatives, including potentially Bank of America. I'm going to be actually talking to Brian Moynihan here later today. Can you tell us about that executive order? What's in that? And what do you think the banks have done?
Well, they did discriminate. I had J.P. Morgan Chase. I had hundreds of millions of dollars in cash. I could see if they want to, if they want to do something bad because you don't have any money and you're defaulted and they took people out. But I'll give you me as an example. I had hundreds of millions. I had many accounts loaded up with cash. I was loaded up with cash.
I had so much money with J.P. Morgan Chase. I had so much money. I was just putting money into the bank to show Jamie Dimon how much money I had. I said, Jamie, I'm going to need another donation from you. My bank account is running a little low.
And they told me, I'm sorry, sir. We can't have you. You have 20 days to get out. I said, you got to be kidding. I've been with you for 35, 40 years. They said, and I mean, I had all this. I didn't know what to do with it.
Bro.
And I went to, you could ask him. Maybe he's not going to admit it. So I said, I was informed by my people that we have to get out of Chase Manhattan. That's Jamie and J.P. Morgan Chase. So I said, I can't believe it. Well, I was never in this situation before. I've never had anything like this.
They told me I had no money, and I said, that's impossible. I have trillions of dollars because of these tariffs. Did Donald Trump just admit that he's broke? He said that they said that he's got to get out. Like, you got no money, bro. You're a brokey. Get the fuck up out of here, man. That's crazy. He just admitted that on live TV that he has no money. What is this segment? What the fuck is, like, what are we talking about? He's talking about getting debanked. Debanking is not a real thing. I mean, it is, yeah, obviously, it is a real thing, but they're not debanking you, Donald Trump.
It's a really, I have a really great company. And then what happens is I call up Bank of America routinely because when I was president, this was after I got out, by the way, I call up Bank of America routinely, and I speak to him, and I speak to a couple of people, and they have zero interest. Brian was kissing my ass when I was president, and when I called him after I was president to deposit,
oh my God, he cursed again. Bro. He's going to say fuck on TV one day. It's going to be awesome. I don't know what I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what it's going to be about. But he's going to have a full-blown crash out on TV. I hope it's soon, man. I need that.
$1 billion plus and a lot of other things. More importantly, to open accounts, which banks always like. They like accounts because they get interest free. You know, the overnights and things. There are a lot of reasons for it, but they like accounts.
They like
hundreds of accounts.
I don't know if you guys know this.
We can't do it. No, we can't do it.
Joe, I don't know if you know this, but banks, they like money. The banks really enjoy having money.
There's 10 million there, 5 million, 10 million, 12 million. I have them all over the place, the craziest thing. And it's lucky I even had them. They were doing me a favor. And that's because the banks discriminated against me very badly. And I was very good to the banks. I had the greatest economy in the history of our country when I was president. And by the way,
they were mean to me. The banks were mean to me. They called me names.
Our economy now, because we're a rich country again, because of our trade deals, we've become a rich country again. But no, they totally discriminate against, I think me maybe even more, but they discriminate against many conservatives. You know, I told that story and sitting around tables with other people that were conservative or Trump supporters. I think the word might be Trump supporters more than conservative. And I believe what they did is they went to the regulators. You know, banks are not afraid of anything but a regulator. They're regulators and their wives. They're more afraid of their wives than the regulators. the group.
What do you say to this? What commentary do I add to this situation? The regulators and their wives. I've never met anyone more afraid of their wife than Jamie Dimon. You know, actually, when I was trying to bribe Jamie Dimon, there were two people I brought in. I brought in his wife, and I brought in someone from the SEC. He was cowering. He said he didn't pee his pants, but it smelled like pee in there, and there was a wet spot on the chair that was not there before. Dude. What? Like...
group they're really afraid of is bank regulators.
Okay, now I see why all of these commentators just stop saying anything. I'm in the same boat. I have nothing to bring to this video.
And I believe that Biden or Kamala, and I don't think they're smart enough to do it, but the people that are surrounding the beautiful Resolute desk, you know, the high IQ people that are radical left, I believe they told the banking commission, the bankers, that the banking regulators, do everything you can to destroy Trump. And that's what they did. And guess what?
The bankers planted my name in the Epstein files. The high IQ radical left told Jamie Dimon to put Trump's name in the Epstein files.
I'm president. How did that happen?
Yeah, Mr. President, you've talked about you want success, not retribution. The Justice Department
just shifted the conversation. Bro, he's thinking right now, I do not get paid enough for this. I do not get paid enough to babysit this fucking guy.
Now tapping a grand jury to look into the intelligence community's assessment of what was happening with Russia. Is that you have nothing to do with directing the Justice Department?
No, I have nothing to do. Pam is doing a great job. I have nothing to do with it. I will tell you this. They deserve it. I was happy to hear it. I actually read it just like you did. I have nothing to do with it. But what they did in the election, what they did in even the last election, but it was too big to rig. But what they did in the 2020 election is grotesque. I mean, that was a rigged election. 100%.
Okay, we can't relitigate that. We can't relitigate
Joe Biden is simultaneously too stupid to do anything, but also the biggest brainiac for orchestrating the stealing of the 2020 election.
Oh, we're back to rigging again. Well, you can use it because everyone knows.
Yeah,
you know what? A year ago, you would have been upset if I said it. Today, it's different. I say it all the time. It was a rigged election. It was 100% rigged.
We can't relitigate because
and I'm sure that's going to be brought up
independent sources, even your Justice Department. But then I'm bringing up Bill Barr, but even they decided it There were things that happened, but nothing that would have swayed it.
Well, they were wrong, and Bill Barr was wrong, and Bill Barr didn't investigate, and he should have. And why didn't Bill Barr give why didn't he give the Derma report? Why didn't he give that report, the stuff that's in there, that's all the stuff is coming out of it? Why didn't he give it earlier? I mean, why did it take so long to do it? Why didn't he give it? Why didn't they announce it earlier? Because it morphed. What happened is it morphed into the Biden administration, and the Biden administration buried it. So, it's too bad.
How about Texas?
No,
now we're going to do mid-year or midterm.
How about Texas?
Gerrymandering based on that's going to be a quid pro quo or something with in blue states now, Mr. President. Did you?
Well, they did it to us. Those blue states that you're talking about. Somebody gave a good example. In Massachusetts, I got, I think, 41% of the vote. It's a very, blue state. And yet it's got 100% of Congress, 100%. So I got 41% or something. And yet 100% of Congress in Massachusetts. No, it shouldn't be that way. We should have a couple of Congress people, but we have none. And think.
What? You got 41, bro, what? Oh my God. Yeah, Massachusetts was the only state that every county voted blue in this most recent election. So I don't know why he's surprised by this.
Look at this, 100%. In Illinois, we have probably the dumbest of all governors. Illinois, that guy's really the business is flowing out of his state. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing that Pritzker's doing. He was the black sheep of the family. They threw him out of the business. But in Illinois, what's happened is terrible what they're doing. And you notice they go to Illinois for safety, but that's all gerrymandered. California's gerrymandered. We should have many more seats in Congress in California. It's all gerrymandered. And we have an opportunity in Texas to pick up 5 seats. We have a really good governor, and we have good people in Texas. And I won Texas. I got the highest vote.
Greg Abbott is a stand-up governor. I love Greg Abbott. I tell you folks, gerrymandering, it's disgusting. Democrats should not be allowed to gerrymander. Only Republicans. I'm telling you guys. Gavin Newsom, Kathy Hochul, J.B. Pritzker, if you're listening, gerrymander your states so that way every congressional seat is blue. Force Republicans to vote to ban gerrymandering.
The history of Texas, as you probably know, and we are entitled to 5 more seats.
I don't know. I have to check on that. And
Wait, the history of Texas?
In Texas, and I won Texas. I got the highest vote in the history of Texas.
Oh, the highest,
as you probably know. And
I think he's talking about in 2020. He got more votes in Texas than any other president, but that was also because him and Joe Biden got more votes than any 2 presidents ever. So yeah, obviously, obviously.
Are entitled to 5 more seats.
I don't know.
We are entitled to 5 seats because our policy is dog shit, and we are going to get smoked in the midterms.
They expect.
Check it. Why don't you check it, Brian?
The fact checkers expect us to check everything you say on the phone.
I want you to
but
check
for 4 years, those fact checkers didn't fact check anything that was said about. We don't need to relitigate that either. But they expect fact checking.
Joe, why don't you check it? Okay, because I'd like you to. I got the highest vote in the history of Texas. Okay, by a lot.
Mr. President, can I ask you back to this?
Is that a woman? Excuse me, miss. Do not talk to me. I'm actually actively trying to take away your civil rights. Can we go back to one of the men, please? Bring me Joe. Bring me Andrew. Bring me someone that is not a woman. You remind me of the Prime Minister of Switzerland. She just would not listen.
Economy, and just on some of the things we've seen with the jobs report, the weakness in those numbers that came out last week. People are trying to figure out where the weakness is coming from. Part of it may be because of immigration. Now, people voted you into office because they were concerned about immigration policy in this country. But if
what the fuck just came out of your mouth? The reason why the jobs report numbers are trash is because of the fucking hysteria surrounding Donald Trump's tariffs. For companies having to lay off employees because of Trump's tariffs. Or like Microsoft laying off 9,000 employees just for fun.
Look at the jobs report last week. It did show a 1.7 million drop-off of foreign-born workers from March to July.
That's a great number, by the way. That's a great number. Because it means we're putting Americans to work.
Well, the problem is immigrants have accounted for more than half of the U.S. workforce growth over the last...
We're putting Americans to work, even though at this point, through the first 6 or 7 months of the year, there have been more layoffs than any year since 2020, and it's a 76% increase compared to 2024. But we're putting Americans to work. We're putting Americans to work in the strawberry fields. We're putting Americans to work as line cooks.
For years. And so you wonder if that gets into an issue. And I know you've spoken with farmers who have had concerns about being able to find temporary workers there. And I think their pleas have kind of hit you in a way where you looked at that a little differently.
Well, I think this. We're getting the criminals out of our country because they had an open border policy because they were fools, and they allowed people from prisons and gang members and drug dealers into our country. We're getting the criminals out of our country by the thousands, and they're taken. We have murderers. We have people that are mentally insane. They come out of insane asylums and psych wards, and they come out of places that you don't want to know about. You would not like to see it. But they dumped everybody in our country, from the Congo in Africa to all over South America. They dumped millions of people into our country that are dangerous people, and I'm getting them out. I'm working with the farmers, however, and the farmers have been great. I also got the highest vote for farmers, I think, that anybody's ever gotten. And I take care of the farmers. I love the farmers. They're a very important part of this country. And we're not going to do anything to hurt the farmers, and we're working on that, and we're going to be coming out with rules and regulations. I mean, you'll see a farmer with the same person working for him for 20 years. The person's even paying taxes and other things. And we're looking for the criminals, the people that murder.
So, Mr. President, are you saying that undocumented immigrants do in fact pay taxes? Because that would run antithetical to everything you had said previously. Again, like, this isn't the audience that he's talking to sees through the bullshit. They know. They understand. They understand.
You know, we have 11,888 people that came into our country under Biden, with our great czar, the border czar. She never called one. You know, she was a border czar. She never went to the border, and she never made one call to the Border Patrol. You know, other than that, she did a great job. But they had hundreds of people that were murderers, 11,888 murders, 50% of which murdered more than one person in our country. We've already gotten a lot of them out, and some of them are so dangerous we don't want to bring them back. We want to put them in our own prison because we don't want them coming back. But they allowed.
I don't even know what he's saying. He claimed that there's almost 12,000 murders done by migrants who came in under the Biden administration. I think that's what he's trying to say, and that is just statistically untrue. It's like maybe a couple dozen every year. Not even close to 12,000. So I don't know what the fuck kind of talking point this is.
11,888 murderers, many of which murdered more than one, into our population, and we're getting them out rapidly.
But Mr. President, I just want to hear you clearly. You're saying the people who have been here for years and who have been even paying taxes, you're going to look at them very differently, and maybe they belong here in the workforce?
I want to work with them, and in some cases, we're sending them back to their country with a pass back in legally, and we're doing things that are very difficult to do and very complex, but it works really well. We're sending them back, and then they're schooling, they're learning, they're coming in legally. We have a lot of that going on. But we're taking care of our farmers. We can't let our farmers not have anybody. These people that you can't replace them very easily. You know, people that live in the inner city are not doing that work. They're just not doing that work. And they've tried. We've tried. Everybody.
Because they don't live near a fucking farm, dude. Also, the reason why migrants are more likely to work these shit ass jobs is because they're desperate. They're coming to the U.S. from whatever country that is destabilized because of the U.S., and they just need a job. They need a job. They need some sort of income. They're not working for 13 hours a day picking strawberries because they love it. They're doing that because they need to survive.
Right. They don't do it. These people do it naturally. Naturally. I said, what happens if they get it to a farmer the other day? What happens if they get a bad back? He said, they don't get a bad back, sir, because if they get a bad back, they die. I said, that's interesting, isn't it? You know, these are very,
If they get hurt, we kill them. What a fucking insane thing to say. Like they're an animal. Like they're a fucking horse or an ox that breaks its leg and it can't pull the carriage anymore. You just fucking shoot them. Oh my God. That's so fucked up, dude.
In many ways, they're very, very special people. Okay, go ahead.
No, okay.
Latinos, I don't know if you guys know this, but they have the tiniest little hands, and it is perfect for getting the tiniest of berries off of the vine. They do it with such remarkable efficiency. Like, what? bro, this is so crazy. This again, there is no natural predisposition to labor jobs for like Mexicans or Guatemalans. It's them desperately needing a job. Like every immigrant from every country that has come over throughout every generation has worked these laborious jobs. Italian, Irish, German, Greek. They've all done what the Latino immigrants are doing now. This is nothing new.
Okay, so here we go. So you did get the highest number of votes in Texas, so that's true. But when you're talking about,
you don't have to say anything more, Joe.
I got to say this.
No, don't say anything more. Don't qualify it by saying,
no,
I got the highest number of votes.
You did.
In the history
I'm moving
of
on.
Texas.
I'm moving on to your claim that revision helped Biden hurt you for the 800,000. It was in August. There was still plenty of time for voters to see if those weren't
after
real
the
jobs.
election in November. I believe it was in November something. There was a massive revision downward on
the
jobs.
First one, the 800,000 or 900,000, I think, was in August, and then later it came out in March of 2025. It went to 598, not 818. But the original one.
Listen, 598. But there were other revisions downward from prior to the election because the numbers were rigged. Okay, and as you said, the number. Look, you take a look after the election. How many revisions downward there were? But let's get back to Texas because you said you were going to say something else. I got the highest vote in the history of Texas, a record that they say won't be beaten unless I run again.
Are you going to run again?
What? Dude. This is like performance art, I think. This is truly unhinged behavior from the president of the United States of America. I don't understand how you can be a financial person watching Squawk Box, experiencing this interview in real time, and have any thought different than, wow, this guy is legitimately insane, and he is going to destroy the United States of America with just his sheer incompetence. He's talking about how many votes he got in Texas in, I think, 2020 or 2024, whenever the fuck it was, instead of the economic goings on with the country.
The
No,
Constitution
probably not.
Okay.
Probably
Probably
And you're not going to fire Jay Powell. We'll go all talk about all the stuff that.
Hey, Becky, I'd like to run. I have the best poll numbers I've ever had. You know why? Because people love.
That's not. No. Like, bro, we are so far beyond postmodernism. Reality just simply does not exist. There's no poll number that shows Donald Trump being better than ever before. Like, he's more despised now than he was in his first term.
The tariffs, and
That's
they love
that's
the
with
trade deal, and they
Republicans.
love that countries, and
That's
they love that
with
foreign
Republicans.
countries aren't ripping us off anymore. For
overall poll
years, they
numbers-
ripped us off, friend and
No.
foe. And the
Overall
friend
poll
was
numbers,
worse.
you don't. Overall poll numbers, you don't have the best you ever had. In overall poll numbers, you do. I cited one of those.
I have the best. I have the best poll
among
numbers I've ever
Republicans.
had.
Among
I have poll
Republicans.
numbers where I'm 71%. I have
Among
the best poll
Republicans.
numbers. Look,
Those are among Republicans. You know you've got.
No. Among Republicans, I'm at 94 and 95%. No, I'm
Well,
talking
you've
about
got-
generally. I have the. Let me
you've
put
got-
it this way: there was a gentleman on Harry Emden yesterday on CNN,
Emden.
and he went crazy over how well Trump was doing. Now,
That
you know,
did not
you don't put that
happen.
on because
Bro, that did not happen. That did not happen. Holy Toledo. Donald Trump's polling numbers are in the fucking toilet. He's currently polling at 17%.
I think CBS is a shade. Actually, CNN's a shade better than NBC. I think NBC is probably the worst of them all. But if you check CNN tomorrow, watch Harry Emden, and you'll see about the numbers. But that's okay. We have to defend ourselves.
Harry
But that's
Emden.
okay.
But there are other. They can cite. Your haters cite polls that have you down in the 30s, Mr. President.
Your
I had fake
haters.
polls, Joe. I had a lot of fake polls. You also have me in the 70s.
Your haters,
Fake polls.
aka
Fox
people
gives
that
me
have
terrible
two
polls
fucking
over there. I know
eyes.
They do nothing, but I've never had a good poll with Fox. And then I went.
Your haters are citing polls in the 30s. Like, yeah, dude, because those are reflective of everybody.
an election and I go through the roof. Because look, I won every swing state, did I not? I
You
won
did.
every swing state. Andrew, I won the popular vote by millions of votes, even though they tried like hell to cheat. I won
He's
by
talking
millions
to
of
Andrew.
votes. I won the counties.
He's talking to
and
Andrew.
all of
Andrew's
the
like
counties.
gone,
I
bro.
won
Andrew left.
7,000,
You're talking to Joe.
2,750 to 502. and I won the election in a landslide. And obviously, that's only, we're only 6 months in. But my poll numbers are better now, much better than during the election. And a part of that.
He won the 2,700 smallest counties. And he won. He won by the smallest margin in modern election history. If not the smallest, the second smallest.
Then part of that is because the Democrat Party is self-destructing. I mean, when you have low IQ people like
Chuck
Crockett,
Schumer.
I wonder if she's in a relationship to the late, great Davy Crockett, who was a great gentleman. I wonder if she's got any relationship to Davy Crockett, the great old Davy Crockett. But you have this woman, Crockett.
Wait. Well, I thought Davy Crockett was made up. Isn't Davy Crockett like Paul Bunyan? Oh, no. No. Okay, he was real. What the fuck? Damn. I'm a low IQ individual. I could have sworn that Davy Crockett was not real. just like a made up frontier person.
She's a very low IQ person. Somebody said the other day she's one of the leaders of the party. I said, you got to be kidding. The Democrats are lost. They have Trump derangement syndrome so bad that they can't walk. They can't talk. They don't know where they're going.
They can't walk.
Schumer, look, I watched him the other day. He's lost all of his confidence.
40% of the country has. So you're never going to get above 60 in any poll, and it's because 40% have TDS, and we know that. Mr. President, we used to do this every Tuesday. It was called Trump Tuesday. Maybe we can start. This is going to be the start of something again. But we appreciate all your time today, and hope to be able to continue this discussion on.
Dude, if they bring back Trump Tuesday.
Could I finish one thing?
Hold on.
Yes.
1 year ago, our country was dead. Now we have the hottest country anywhere in the world by far. And that was told to me by every leader of NATO, which they do whatever I want. That was told to me by the King of Saudi Arabia, by the leaders of UAE, by the leader of Qatar, by many. We were a dead country 1 year ago.
We are the hottest country. All of my dick riders said that we are the hottest country right now. They would never lie to me. They only glaze. They said that, sir, there is no country hotter than the United States of America right now. It is, in fact, so hot that we can't fly over because our planes would melt. Our planes would melt, sir. You have such tremendous aura. Your motion is unmatched by any other leader.
Today we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and I'm very happy to help.
Mr. President, once again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Yo, if they do Trump Tuesday, if they bring back Trump Tuesday to CNBC, Joe is gonna fucking die. He's just straight up gonna perish. Did you see him trying to control himself? Like dude was legitimately tweaking when Trump was saying shit. Also, please do Trump Tuesday. Not because I want Joe to die. I don't have any beef with Joe. But every Trump Tuesday would lead to tremendous market instability. Like, I would just want to see the stock market fucking crumble. And I know that's a harsh thing to say. I understand the implications of that. But some of y'all need to wake the fuck up to how disastrous this guy is. He's so clearly unfit to be the goddamn president of the United States. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the show. Thank you guys so much for coming to hang out with me today. Everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on any of the videos if you enjoyed them. If you're listening to this on Spotify, leave a rating. Follow the show over there as well. Both of those help out tremendously. Stay safe, stay sane, and I will see you in the next one.